Returning to the wreck one morning, Mickelson discovers that every fish he had carefully stored has mysteriously disappeared. For a brief moment, hope rushes through him as he imagines another survivor hiding somewhere nearby. But that hope quickly turns into fear when enormous polar bear tracks reveal the true thief. Knowing the deadly predator could return at any moment, he rushes back inside the safety of the crashed plane. The following day, despite fierce Arctic winds, he once again climbs the icy hill and cranks his emergency transmitter. Suddenly, a green indicator lights up, proving that a helicopter is finally within range. Excited beyond words, he ignites a bright emergency flare, and the helicopter changes course toward him. Salvation appears only moments away, but nature has one more cruel twist prepared. A violent snowstorm slams into the aircraft, throwing it wildly through the sky before it crashes into the frozen landscape. Racing across the snow, Mickelson reaches the wreck only to find the pilot already dead, while a severely injured young woman still clings to life. Determined not to let another life slip away, Mickelson forces open the damaged helicopter and carefully pulls the unconscious woman free before dragging her across the unforgiving snow all the way back to his crashed plane. When she briefly regains consciousness, the two discover they cannot understand each other because they speak completely different languages. Ignoring the communication barrier, Mickelson focuses on treating the deep wound in her abdomen, painfully stitching it closed before she loses consciousness once again. Leaving her a handwritten note promising to return, he heads back to the crash site where he respectfully buries the dead pilot beneath a pile of stones. While searching through the helicopter, he discovers an Arctic map that could finally show a path to civilization, along with frozen noodles and a portable stove. After surviving for months on raw fish, he finally has the chance to cook a real meal. Among the belongings, he also finds a family photograph showing the injured woman, the dead pilot, and their small daughter, making him realize the man died only because he had tried to rescue him. The weight of guilt settles heavily on Mickelson as he carries the supplies back to his shelter, believing the pilot sacrificed his own life to save a stranger. Outside, one of his fishing traps holds a massive catch, allowing him to prepare both fish and hot noodles on the newly found stove. After surviving 6 endless months in the Arctic, the warm meal feels almost unreal. He gently feeds the recovering woman before studying the map more carefully. It reveals a distant rescue point where helicopters regularly land, offering the first genuine chance of escape either of them has ever had. Knowing winter will soon become even more deadly as temperatures plunge beyond -50 degrees, Mickelson makes a life-changing decision. He refuses to leave the woman behind. Instead, he gathers fish for food, fills containers with water, leaves a note inside the plane explaining that they headed north, wraps the injured survivor tightly inside a sleeping bag placed on a makeshift sled, and begins pulling her across the endless frozen wilderness despite his own growing weakness. Step after exhausting step, Mickelson drags the heavy sled across endless fields of snow, speaking to the injured woman constantly, even though she cannot answer him. His determination no longer comes from saving himself, but from correcting what he believes is the terrible price another family has already paid because of him. After traveling for hours, he studies the map again and realizes nearly 45 kilometers still separate them from the rescue station, a journey that may take an entire week through deep snow. His strength continues fading, while somewhere nearby, the deadly polar bear still roams the wilderness. As darkness falls and the Arctic temperature plummets, he digs a shelter directly into the snow, creating a small insulated cave where they can survive the freezing night. Inside the icy refuge, he prepares another warm meal and spends the entire night watching over the unconscious woman before dawn arrives, bringing yet another day of relentless struggle across the frozen wasteland. Morning brings no relief as Mickelson resumes dragging the sled despite exhaustion weighing down every movement. Eventually, an enormous cliff blocks their path. Alone, he could climb it, but hauling the injured woman to the top seems nearly impossible. Consulting the map, he discovers an alternate route that avoids the cliff, but taking it would add several dangerous days to their journey, far longer than his limited food supply can support. Refusing to surrender, he climbs the cliff by himself, secures a rope, and begins pulling the sled upward inch by inch. For a hopeful moment, it seems possible, but disaster strikes when the rope suddenly slips from his hands. The sled slides backward, sending the woman all the way to the bottom once again. Realizing he cannot overcome this obstacle without killing them both, Mikkelsen painfully accepts defeat, carries his equipment back down the cliff, and chooses the longer route, knowing every extra mile reduces their chances of survival. As the exhausting detour begins, the injured woman's condition worsens, while Mikkelsen continues dragging the sled through the frozen wilderness until night once again closes around them. Searching desperately for shelter from both the deadly cold and the ever-present polar bear, he discovers a narrow cave hidden between the rocks. Judging from its shape, he realizes it almost certainly belongs to a polar bear, but with no other option, he carefully enters anyway. Fortunately, the cave is empty. Inside, he prepares one final cooked meal, only to discover that the stove's fuel has completely run out. From now on, warm food is no longer possible. While they rest inside the darkness, strange footsteps echo outside the cave entrance. Moments later, the enormous polar bear appears, attempting to force its way inside. Thinking quickly, Mikkelsen ignites his emergency flare and throws the blazing light toward the animal, frightening the predator enough to send it retreating into the snowy night while he spends the rest of the evening unable to sleep. With the bear finally gone by, morning Mikkelsen wastes no time leaving the dangerous cave behind. Hours later, an overwhelming Arctic blizzard crashes into them with terrifying force. Using the sled as a shield, he throws himself over the injured woman, while snow buries them beneath thick frozen layers. After the storm finally passes, he digs both of them free and immediately notices blood around the woman's mouth. Her wound has become badly infected, and she shows almost no sign of life. Convinced she cannot possibly survive, Mikkelsen makes the heartbreaking decision to leave her behind. Placing her family photograph beside her, he walks away alone through the endless snow, every step filled with unbearable guilt. But fate refuses to let him escape so easily. Only a short distance later, he falls into a hidden crevasse, breaking his leg. Lying helplessly in agony, he realizes abandoning her was the greatest mistake he could have made. Believing that saving the injured woman may be the only reason he has survived this long, Mikkelsen painfully splints his broken leg and forces himself back to where he left her. To his astonishment, she has regained consciousness and weakly asks for water. Filled with renewed hope, he gives her a drink before placing her back onto the sled and continuing the impossible journey despite every step sending waves of agony through his shattered leg. Using a wooden stick as support, he limps slowly across the frozen landscape until, at last, the distant rescue station comes into view high above them. Unfortunately, the final climb is too steep to drag the sled. Leaving the woman below for only a moment, he struggles to the top alone and discovers a helicopter waiting there. His heart fills with hope as he rushes back down, determined to bring her to safety before the aircraft disappears forever. Driven by sheer determination, Mikkelsen somehow drags the sled up the final slope until both survivors finally reach the rescue point. But crushing disappointment awaits them. The helicopter and its crew remain far away, unable to notice their desperate struggle. Mikkelsen fires his final flare into the sky, yet no one sees it. Refusing to give up, he removes his jacket, sets it ablaze, and waves the burning cloth with every ounce of strength left in his body. But even the flames vanish into the endless white Arctic. Desperation overwhelms them as the helicopter lifts off and begins flying away. Pulling the woman from the sleeping bag, both cry out with everything they have, but their voices disappear beneath the howling wind. Watching their last chance fade into the distance, they collapse in despair, convinced they have reached the final moments of their lives. Accepting what seems to be the inevitable end, Mikkelsen gently holds the woman's hand as they lie together upon the frozen snow. Overcome with guilt, he apologizes through tears, confessing that the death of her husband happened because the rescue pilot had risked everything trying to save him. Believing both of them are about to die, they slowly close their eyes and surrender to exhaustion. Then, almost miraculously, the wind begins moving Mikkelsen's hair from behind. A helicopter has returned. The rescue crew had finally spotted them and rushed back before it was too late. After months trapped in one of the harshest places on Earth, Mikkelsen is finally saved. Not because he fought only for himself, but because he chose to risk everything to save another human life. His selfless determination became the very reason rescue found him, proving that even in the coldest wilderness, hope can survive as long as compassion refuses to die.